Greetings! I'm Rodger Newbold, and welcome to episode 34 of the Experienced Photography Vlog. You know, my fellow photographer, my partner, and editor of this episode is Mr. Matt Rich. He's the man that knows his way around a camera. He told me that life isn't about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself. And off we go to create something new again today. Hold on. He'll give us more advice. Hey, are you there, my friend?
I don't have to worry about creating myself. I've got it all together. I just can't remember where I put it.
Excellent. In our last episode, we investigated the first 7 tutorials on street photography. Today we'll carry on, continuing and starting with number 8. That's abstract street photography. Now, abstract street photographers aren't unobtrusive or totally intrusive. They're kind of like impartial camera haulers, and they're just looking for a combination of shapes and patterns, that stimulate and move them. They step back from the street and they see whatever form it happens to take. Here, one found a man with no head. It's about the shapes. It's about the forms. It's generating imagery rather than any particular subject matter. Now, I don't care who you are. You can always go outside and take pictures of geometrical shapes. All you have to do is look at your feet. Don't walk on somebody. Find a shape, shoot it. Look at the wall, shoot it. Find something. This is really an easy one, number 8. Now, in episode 17, we reviewed information on abstract ideas. So if you're having trouble, go back to 17 and take a look at the material. It may be something that you like and something that will help you. I believe good composition is a good key to abstract street work. The beauty is finding unique shapes and forms and colors. And the street photographer finds all of this and then strips it down into, an aesthetic beauty, forming some type of cryptic sense. It's wonderful. To be successful in this category, the photographer must, keep his eyes open and imagination tuned in. Saul Leiter, I think, really did the perfect job of this. Look at the umbrellas. Look at the street post. Look at the color. Look at the shapes. Look at the form. That is finding something in the street. I love the work of Saul. I think he had, one of the fastest trigger fingers found anywhere around. He had many different types of cameras that he used in his work, and he didn't seem to have any particular allegiance to any one manufacturer. If it took a picture and he could carry it, he used it. He used point and shooters all the way up to big DSLRs. Here's a picture of Saul at work, and you see that in the final print he even added himself a pair of new shoes. Saul from inside the cafe and capturing a great window reflection. Now, number 9 in street photography is from a car. Now, I'm surprised that this aspect of street photography hasn't blossomed to even a greater extent already. Almost everyone around here possesses the 2 essential ingredients. A camera, and B, a car. Let's take a look at what Les shot for us. He's clicking the clouds in the meadows from the car. We have become such a mobile society that life seems to be a blur except for the snapshots, taken between breaths. In the western United States, distances are vast. And it's not unlikely that you're, encapsulated behind a seatbelt for hours at a time. It's just 421 miles to Las Vegas. And, you can do it from my house in about 5 hours. Yet Lee Freelander caught New York and Las Vegas in the same shot from his car. Way to go, Lee. Blimey, it's only 286 miles from my place in Penzance to London. But still, it took 5 hours. Well, that's a pretty slow bus. So I realize if you're stuck for 4 hours to do just, 200 miles between Boston and New York, things can be different. But take a camera for entertainment. It's no wonder that images from, the car, the bus, or even a train are becoming so popular. Street photography from a vehicle is expanding and will continue to do so. Get a fast 2.8 wide to normal zoom and knock yourself out and have a lot of fun. But stay on the road. Watch what you're doing. I don't want anybody driving through the Tules. Now, modern street photography. Now we're getting somewhere. Modern street focuses on aspects of life that are, peculiar to the modern world. It's not as simple as taking a picture of just a street scene that's new today. That would be, contemporary street photography. But let's look at modern. People are maybe not always be the subject, but the focus is more on the shape and the images that symbolize modernism. It's an unlikely pairing by Howard Johansson that you can get an old building, a new mural, and a car. How great. It's okay, the things that we know will change with time. It could be the shape of a new car model or a toy fad that's already nearing its sell-by date. It could be the modernist machine as found by Ken Moore. It could be the old town clock versus the new modern clock. What a rendition. Ken's photographs are a perfect example of how modernism and modernist art can both be revolutionary, yet be related to past traditions, which is the actual definition of modernism. In modern street photography, there's a sense of self-awareness of what's happening now, like the fat tire bike with a new helmet and taking a selfie. The photographer knows how times change and how new becomes dated in the blink of an eye. Now, modern street photography is about knowing your fleeting moments of history. So, take that. Selfies. Ethics in street photography. Now, here's one I'm not going to sugarcoat. Street photography is generally intrusive, no matter how hard you try to be invisible. You can't. Photography and photographing people candidly usually means that you do not have their permission beforehand. To do street photography, you'll need to come to terms with this. And I just know people, I know several people who just says, I can't do it, I'm not brave enough, I can't face it. Well, that's fine. But you have to come to terms with it. Every time you hit the shutter, there's a chance that your subject will be bothered, annoyed, or worse. Now, most won't mind, but some will. In the days of film, I had a very big, large person. He demanded forcefully that I give him the film. So I opened the old camera back, pulled the film out of the cassette, handed it to him. I do still have all my teeth. This is one of the moral costs of doing street photography, is coming to terms and dealing with it. Most of it does because we like people. We like exploring. We like seeing. We like capturing the things of the culture. The camera is just a way to bring back moments that we see and that we enjoy. The images we take have value both currently and especially historically. Therefore, I believe it's all worth the bother. Try to brighten up and smile a lot. Be polite. Move on quickly. Don't waste everybody's time. And by the way, if somebody catches you making a photograph, well, own up to it. Don't be combative. It's your legal right to photograph on the street, but I wouldn't use that as an argument. Have a short story ready. Conversations, if it gets that far, all you have to do is tell them, hey, I'm taking a class, and my goofy teacher gave me this assignment. Keep in mind that the stealthier you act, the weirder you actually look. Sometimes being obvious and taking photographs in a direct way can be the least confrontational of all strategies. More obvious you look, the less people will think you're possibly doing anything wrong. If you were doing something wrong, why would you be so obvious? Just face up to it. Finally, consider, starting somewhere busy like at a fair or an open market, arts festival, something in that genre. It's a great way to get over the initial hump of being afraid because you'll be less noticeable and you can improve and you can move on to different places. Now, I want to talk a little bit about street behavior. Normally, you grab your camera, you take a photo, and then what do? Well, you got your camera in hand. Most photographers simply click, capture the image, drop their arms down to their side, and let their camera dangle. That's what tips people off. It's a clear indication you have been photographed. Make a conscious effort to adjust your behavior. Think about this. After you capture an image, don't look terrified, don't drop your arms. Instead, just hold the camera in place until the subject leaves, gets out of your scene. That way, your subject will think you were just photographing the background and that they were in the way and you were just waiting for them to move on anyway. Good idea. Now, street equipment. You can do street photography, anything, any camera. You can do it with a DSLR, a mirrorless camera, a rangefinder, a click and point shoot, a disposable camera for all I care. You can use a phone if you're careful. Now, watching Saul Leiter working, I've seen him using a point and shoot camera. Cameras up to very conspicuous bright. He even used the brightest chrome red Lumix camera that was out there. Now, personally, I've used Leica, Fuji. I started off with a little Olympus XA. I used Nikon. I've used Canon. And I'm here to tell you, there is no discernible difference. I'm rather convinced that the hardware has less to do with it than the efforts of the user. Now, you can do with any type of lens. You can use a gigantic heavy zoom or a teeny tiny prime or something in between. And that said, different equipment does offer different specific advantages. Now, a zoom will let you capture the more varied opportunities at different distances. But it's going to be heavier, it's going to be bigger, more noticeable, and a little more cumbersome to use. Now, prime lens, they're pretty small. They will restrict you to a single focal length, but they'll be light. They'll be freeing. They'll be fun to use. Point and shoot, click, yeah, it's great, I like it. In fact, prime lenses offer you an advantage. You'll begin to see the whole world more intuitively when you just use one focal length. You'll know what's going to be there, what's going to be captured in it. You'll just know how it fits. With the limitations, it may stop you from capturing certain shots. You will become even quicker, though, in capturing images within the constraint of that single focal length prime. Ultimately, you'll become better and more spontaneous. Now, traveling light and compact will give you a lot of flexibility. If you have to run, I hope you don't. Especially in places where a large camera stands out, or where the weight of a camera hanging there becomes prohibitive. In my experience, lighter cameras and lenses are just simply more fun to shoot with. They let you enjoy photography in situations you normally wouldn't take a bulky DSLR up to. Now, I'm not at all the biggest fan of a rangefinder camera. For street photography, I have enjoyed using my mirrorless Fuji X-T4, and I use it with a 50 millimeter equivalent 76 or a 23 f2.0 equivalent 35. Now, both of these lenses are less than 2 inches. They're really small. They're very light, like a 46 millimeter filter. Now, I use zone focusing. It's simple to learn. It's absolutely practical to use, but it's really painful to explain. So, I'll give it a whirl. Basically, zone focusing is a strategy where you manually focus the lens at a distance of about 7 to 10 feet into the scene. Now, with a moderate wide angle, like a 28 or a 35, and you set it at f11, you can then take photos without even adjusting the focus point at all. There's no sense looking through the camera because everything's going to be out of focus except what's 7 feet. But using a zoom lens, you can do this just as well. All I do is take a piece of masking tape. I set the focal length, I set the f-stop, I set the focus, I set everything, and put a piece of masking tape across the top of the lens. It holds everything in place. Turn everything auto off. Maybe you do nothing more than point the lens in a general direction. You're walking down the road and you see something and Gary Winogrand it. You just take this and you don't have to look through it. You don't have to bring it to your eye. You don't have to do any of that type of stuff. When the subject enters the pre-focused area, you just click the shutter. You don't fiddle with anything. You don't wait for autofocus. That very fraction of a second that zone focusing saves is added to the freedom that this allows you. It takes you a long way fast. Here's a zone focused image. You can just walk by, look at, and you're gone. Now, I only zone focus with a 35 millimeter or wider angle lens. Well, why? The further you zoom in or get a longer focal length, the more accurate that your focus must be. And your focus point has to be exact to get it sharp. It becomes very difficult to zone focus with a 50 millimeter or longer lens. Now, if you do this with a 35 or a 28, it's a piece of cake. First of all, the depth of field chart says a 35 focused at 7 feet is good from anything from about 5 feet to infinity. Now, you set your aperture at f11 and the depth of field will carry the shot. I set the shutter speed manually at 125 or better, and I set the ISO at auto. Just let it travel. I don't care what the ISO range is when I'm out on the street. It's clean, it's easy, and it's just totally super fast. So just remain positive about your vision and your outcome. Persevere totally through any changes and any setbacks. Go out and practice this. Practice it with your kids. Practice it just walking through your house. When you think it's time, snap it. When you review them later, make sure they're sharp. Make sure you know what you're doing. Get it down. Learn to work well under pressure and meet some tight deadlines. Don't get all frustrated and worried about what people are looking at and what people are thinking about. Whether you got a camera, good crap, you got enough to worry about. Just get used to doing it zone focus. Well, my friends, today's time has come. I believe it's been well spent in learning more about this exciting branch of photography. I love it, and it's a lot of fun to do, and you'll have fun practicing it. Maybe it's a real eye-opener to some, and maybe it's an open invitation to others to get out and do some more. You know, the street's always there, and I'm telling you, it's always calling. Take your camera for a walk today. Matt and I wish you good luck and much success in what you're doing. If you've enjoyed these 10 tips and other associated advice that we've given in this presentation, please share it with your friends. Give us a big thumbs up. Tinkle that little bell for new content. If you help us build our site, we'll help you build your skills. We offer something new for you, and you can take a friend along for a ride. I'm sure they'll appreciate it also. So, until we meet again on screen, a tip of my hat to you. And cheerio, lads.